I am trying to make an actual TV show.
It's so hard to find a funny show that isn't filthy. I watch them, but I don't want to.
Let's do this.
Fire, like lots of fire.
So dedicated.
So cool. Where's it go from there, you know?
Oh, have I got your attention now?
This is bigger than you can handle.
You got any plans for tonight?
But what are you waiting for? Let's go.
Cool? Absolutely!
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing out there? Woo! Season 10, day 2, heading into the late afternoon here. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Randy Kleiner. I'm the co-founder and CEO of SeriesFest, and I am so thrilled to welcome you to this panel of the State of the Industry. State of the Industry. This is going to be, I think, very insightful, impactful. We have six dynamic panelists. You're going to get to hear a lot of perspectives, and I'm very excited. But before I bring them out, just a few quick thank yous. First of all, thank you to the SeriesFest staff and volunteers. They are a small team, but a mighty team. They work so hard. Give them a loud. Let me hear you. There we go. I'd also like to thank our friends at Denver Film. We're in their Home to See Film Center. Their staff truly becomes a part of our staff, from the projectionists to the house managers, theater managers, everybody. We're just so thankful. It's an incredible partnership. We've been here for 10 years, so thank you, Denver Film. And finally, a huge, huge thank you to our media partner this year, Deadline Hollywood. Thank you. And I don't think this panel needs a whole lot of explanation, so let's just get into it. And I'm going to bring up our incredible moderator. He's been doing a lot of work for us today, so we're very grateful. Please welcome Peter White, Executive Editor of Television for Deadline.
Hello, hope your morning went well, and nice to see you back this afternoon. We're going to keep this lively. We've got an hour to solve the entire problem with the entertainment industry. I think we can do it, especially with this group. So, no, it'll go really well. Looking forward to it. I'm going to introduce your panel, and then we're going to fix everything that is wrong with Hollywood, I promise you. Right, Tom Verica, Head of Creative Production at Shondaland. We have Jennifer Loren, who is the Senior Director of the Cherokee Film. We have Jocelyn Sabo, who is the SVP of Television Development at Lionsgate. Melissa Myers, a producer and manager. Jennifer Gwartz, EVP of UCP. And Diana Williams, co-founder and CEO of Kinetic Energy Entertainment. Let's start with you, Tom. I fear microphones are going to be the talk of SeriesFest, but...
There we go.
There we go. Okay, good. What's the state of the industry, Tom? No, I'm joking. Most people know you as an actor. You've been in many things, How to Get Away with Murder, among numerous other titles. But you have been directing episodes of television, Grey's Anatomy, for close to 20 years, and you now have this much broader role, Head of Creative Production. Can you give us a bit of an idea? How does one go from being in front of the camera to behind the camera to now in charge of the people on both sides of the camera?
How long do I have? In a nutshell, I think it's my relationship with Shonda and Betsy Beers. I started directing about 20 years ago, and I immediately was grabbed by it. I immediately put acting on the back burner. I started directing with Shondaland, then I worked my way into being a producer director on Scandal. My relationship with them sort of grew, and eventually turned into being at Netflix when we moved over to Netflix. And my producing duties just became far more. So in kind of describing what that position was, Shonda says, I'm not sure what it is. We're going to kind of create a title. We were kicking around, trying different titles, what it sounded like, and we already have a head of production. But it was kind of creative production kind of does crystallize it in overseeing not only directors, which was my initial thing, is hiring directors for our shows and overseeing that and directing as well. But it's kind of grown into scripts, which shows do we pick up, pre-production, post-production, editing, right down until we finally launch. So it kind of covers the full gamut depending upon the needs of the particular project.
Did you always want to be behind the scenes, or did you want to be an actor and then you realized, hold on a minute, this other side of things is a pretty good gig?
I think it was acting is kind of what I got into when I started, but it as I started working in series television for being on a number of shows, I think I was drawn in by what directors were doing and the storytelling aspect of it. I'm not a writer. I know too many good writers to know that I cannot do it. But directing was something, visual storytelling was something that always spoke to me from when I was a little kid, and I saw the red balloon in school, which most of you probably won't know, but it was the storytelling through images that really kind of grabbed me, and the opportunity to then realize that kind of turned into my directing career.
And you still direct. You directed all the episodes of Queen Charlotte.
Yes, yeah, that was the first doing all of those.
Did you choose yourself? Is this is this a sort of?
It's part of the prerequisite.
Dick Cheney style.
No, I actually. It was not that. Shonda actually called and said she wanted me to do, because she was going to write all 6. She wanted me to direct all 6 because she just didn't want to have to deal with it. We have a shorthand, so she just didn't want to have to deal with kind of explaining what she wanted and knowing her style. In reality, it was sometimes getting late scripts, and I can make stuff happen quicker knowing what she wants. But yeah, I actually was considering having another director, maybe doing 2 directors, but she was really forceful with wanting me to do it, and I really wanted that challenge to sort of be the architect over the 6-episode arc.
And you get to spend more time in London. We were just discussing British pub food and how it's changed over the last 20 years. So
some
that's
good
a bonus.
Thai food, yeah.
That's a bonus. There's been a lot of change in Shondaland in the sense, as you said there, you know, best known for producing these ABC series for many, many years, and then moving to Netflix, inventing Anna, Bridgerton, Queen Charlotte. What has changed in that time in terms of the work you do? Presumably budgets are bigger, presumably everything's a little bit bigger. Is there anything else that you can sort of pinpoint in terms of what's changed for you?
I mean, I think specifically for us and our company, it was, you know, so long it was ABC, so it was network television, and we kind of knew what we had to hit and what they were looking for, and so the guardrails were pretty set. I think once we moved to Netflix, it really kind of threw open opportunity. We didn't come at things with budget and how you know, how can we spend more money? I mean, the choice, the project that you pick really dictates what it's going to be. If you pick a character piece indoors, you're going to save a lot more money than doing a period romance novel series, which is going to be a lot bigger in budget. But it's what she wanted to do. She had an idea and she had her finger on something, and so that kind of really catapulted it to another way. But there's really there's nothing in our development now that we say we're not doing this, we're not doing that, or that we won't entertain. So it's really the palette is pretty broad in what we want to do. We do like to challenge ourselves and try different things.
Yeah, I bet. Jennifer, on to you. Tell me about Cherokee Film. You created this about 5 years ago, give or take, essentially wanting to try and reclaim the narrative. Is that right?
Yes. First of all, Osio Nigad, Nokwisi Dagwato Chichalagi. Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Loren. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you to SeriesFest. And to be up here on the stage with all of these esteemed panelists is really wonderful. So as a Cherokee and Indigenous person, it's really important for us to take up space in these types of venues, and so I'm really delighted to be here, and that's exactly right. So at Cherokee Film, we are a film and media ecosystem, and we say that we are innovating narrative sovereignty, but we really are creating this a new way forward, as we like to call it, in creating projects with Indigenous and Native people as part of the process, and we have a hashtag More Natives. We're trying to help infuse the industry with more Native people in front of the camera, behind the camera, in the writers' rooms, everywhere we can. And so Cherokee Film is an ecosystem, and we have 4 branches. So we have Cherokee Film Productions, which is how it all started. I came on as a documentary filmmaker to start creating documentaries for my tribe. And we saw the success in that. Our docu-series has won 22 regional Emmy Awards over 7 seasons. We saw that there was an audience and we wanted to blow that up and expand it. So 5 years ago, we started doing that. So now we have Cherokee Film Productions. We have Cherokee Film Studios, where we have our own sound stages that we have built. We built one that is a virtual production volumetric sound stage. And we're under construction on our second one. And then we have the Cherokee Film Commission, which is a film commission, just like many of those that you have worked with, where we're attracting film to our reservation area, which is in the northeastern corner of Oklahoma. Our office is based in Tulsa, which is a great city. I encourage everyone to come visit. And then we have the Cherokee Film Institute, which we're spinning up right now, which is going to help remove the barrier to get Native Americans into the film and television industry. And it's all based in Tulsa. So we have a lot going on. And under our production arm, we're actually getting ready to start. We actually are starting to do film and television development to develop series, television, and film for major markets.
Yeah, and this is a pretty new initiative, right? You said this literally days old, if not
days old. We've been working on it for a couple of years, but yeah, we have hired a production development executive, and so we're getting real serious now, and we're taking it very seriously, and we want to create and develop very high level projects. And it's a really interesting time, for us, but as we're looking to get into the industry in this way, to see what's going on with the state of the industry right now. And so I'm really interested to hear from all of the other panelists as well.
Yeah, we'll talk. That's obviously going to be a big part of this representation, diversity, and take you into that. Jocelyn, tell us a little bit about what you work on at Lionsgate. Lionsgate's known for, you have shows like Ghosts and Yellow Jackets, The Continental, and the Power Universe. Talk us through what's on your slate.
Well, I think you've named some of the big ones. We also have a new show launching on Apple that we just started production on, from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. It's called, well, I'm not sure what the name is at the moment. But it's sort of like Veep set inside the entertainment industry. It's a really fun show, and I think for those of us working in the industry, it actually has a lot of fun inside baseball jokes, but ultimately feels like a workplace comedy to anyone outside. We are also in production on Hunting Wives, which is a neighborhood soap for stars. I'm heading to New Zealand in a couple weeks. We're rebooting the Spartacus series for stars, which is also really exciting.
Apparently the moon is upside down in New Zealand, I was just informed, so we've asked Jocelyn to watch out for that with us. In terms of the types of shows there, most of those are very big budget shows. We'll get into the sort of where we are now, but your job is essentially to work with writers and producers, people coming to pitch you stuff that you can take out to buyers, networks and streamers, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Melissa, next.
Hello.
Melissa, you spent 20 years at WME. Poacher turned gamekeeper a little bit now in this sense of being a producer. I get the impression that what you're doing now is I think I called you a professional middleman earlier.
I guess so.
Can you sort of describe what you do now?
Yeah, when I was an agent, I really launched our kind of international department at a time pre-Netflix, pre-Downton Abbey, when it wasn't sexy or cool to go to London, and the international business was very separate, in each territory from the U.S. business. It was mainly like tape and distribution sales, so I signed a lot of, during kind of the format craze, I signed a lot of the producers and sold their formats into the U.S., and then they became co-productions, and from that because I saw, I hate saying this, DVDs, which is dating me, early, or even tapes. Early, I signed a lot of the writers and directors and performers out of there. And now, obviously, with the globalization and technology, where everything's date and date, so I'm working as a consultant for a lot of companies that want to break into the U.S. and companies from the U.S. that want to break into international, and representing writers and directors and writer-performers like I have been.
Yeah, we'll get into that. The entertainment industry has become more global in the last few years. I mean, look, being blunt, that's why I was able to go from London to LA. So I'm pleased with that, right? You see shows like Fleabag open the door, Catastrophe and such, and that's just kicked the door open for many more. So we'll talk about that. Jennifer, we had many of your NBC Universal colleagues on here earlier. Is there anything you want to dispute, or give us an idea in terms of what you do over there at UCP?
I know how to use the microphone.
When?
I'm Jen Gwartz. I'm EVP of UCP, a division of Universal Studios Group. I work across production, current programming, development, and I also spent about a little over a decade as a non-writing executive producer. So one of the things that is really exciting for me is to bring that lens and purview working with the creators and talent that we're working with now.
Yeah, and we were talking about some of the UCP shows that we didn't really mention. We mentioned TED a little bit. That's a project that you work on based upon a true story, which, as we were joking earlier, is an original idea.
Based
and is
on a true story.
Based on a true story is not based on a story, right?
Loosely inspired by a true story.
No, but point being is it's not IP, essentially.
Right, exactly. TED based on the movie, and yes, based on a true story was original idea.
Okay, we'll get into all of that.
Yep.
Diana, tell us, you run a multi-platform venture studio. Give us an idea what Kinetic is.
I don't want to be you. What we do as a venture studio, we're looking at working with creators. Our thesis for the company really is that creative is a business. And what we want is to shift a little bit the mindset around, especially with creators in terms of understanding ownership, understanding their POV, understanding how to also work within the system or to work outside the system. So, and just opening up the possibilities of the different ways in which to get your creativity, whatever format it is, because we're across all formats. I also work as a non-writing EP on certain shows that I'm not allowed to announce yet, and but we also are developing IP. And so it's just trying to get a lot of people to understand that there is more than one doorway into getting your creativity to the audience.
You have an incredibly diverse slate, and I mean that in the sense that a K-pop series in development with HBO, a series adaptation of a comic, a video game, a podcast, and a documentary feature at Apple. Those things could not be further from each other. Is that?
They're all story words. They're all different ways in which an audience can come into a story.
Mm-hmm.
One is B2C, so we are directly bringing that type of creativity directly to the audience. And with the HBO thing, so that's B2B. So I've sold into the system, and then through the development, anywhere between 2 and 90 years, one day it'll find an audience.
By the end of this panel, I'll try and get you to tell me more about that. But hey, at Deadline, we started a series, I think it was even referenced earlier, the Hollywood Contraction. As we saw coming out of the strikes, things did not necessarily pick up as people expected them to, or maybe had hoped they would. It's a bit of a tough time out there, and without sort of spending the next 45 minutes just being incredibly doom and gloom, I wondered if we can try and get a sense of where we are, how we can actually still keep going, because there's still plenty of content being made. There's still lots of incredible stories being told, lots of incredible people making them. So I want to try and be as uplifting as we can while acknowledging the fact that it's tough out there. Tom, from your point of view, other than...
Thanks for that setup.
You know, you've got the big budgets at Netflix and stuff, but you're seeing the pain that the industry is going through, and that usually has a knock-on effect for writers, directors, and others. Where do you think we are in the scheme of things, in this cycle of things?
I think it's new. This business constantly kind of changes and shifts. And I think we're just in one of those periods with the contract negotiations, with the writers' contracts, with AI, all these elements. There's a lot of newness that people are unsure of. So I think it's probably made people a bit gun shy. I think I am the eternal optimist. I think everything will snap back and it'll change its form, whether it's the amount of shows, it may not be, but I think it's, we're kind of in a little bit of a quiet storm, or the waves are a little low right now until we find out what that is. But there's always something that comes along, whether it's a new idea, a new project that sort of bursts the door open that people feel okay to jump on. You know, I know we're still dealing with, IATSE is still coming, so there's trepidation, I think, on a number of levels, and I think everyone's just trying to figure out what the landscape is now post-strike of the other strikes, potentially this one, and it's just that natural lull, I think, before we find some sort of definition in there. But I think content will always keep coming, and I think when people get a little bit more sure of their footing, things will hopefully get back to normal.
Yeah, Jocelyn, where you're talking to a lot of these writers, and there's worry out there, but what are you hearing to pin on, right on what Tom was saying there? Are you as optimistic as he is?
I am. I mean, I think that while we are seeing contraction, while we are seeing things change, we have over 12 shows that are in their third season or later. We had the first show out of the gate that was up running 4 days after the strikes ended. We've had a really good couple of months selling several things. So I think that, I'm lucky to be in a company that is independent and nimble. And we're certainly using that to our advantage where we can, and being creative both with, I think, what are the projects that we're taking on? What is the creative behind them? How are we making sure that they're still differentiated and really distinctive, and that they're things that people have to have? And on the business side too, and making sure that we're nimble there where we need to be. And sometimes it's like from the very beginning, kind of thinking about both of those and bringing them so that you can say, we have this really special project and we know how to make it for the right price. Yeah. But I feel very optimistic.
How much is cost play a part in this? How much, in fact, Jeffrey Hirsch, who runs the company, Stars, said that costs is something that after 3 or 4 seasons, they keep going up, and that's why we have to keep developing new projects. So in amongst that, that's bad for those shows that are in seasons 3 or 4, but good for people coming through.
Right. I think so. And I think that ultimately, yes, obviously we all know shows get more expensive, but there's also ways to, knowing that's coming, be mindful about how you're keeping that down. And that's something that we're all going to have to be mindful of as we move forward. But I still think it's possible, and I think we're still going to see shows that run for multiple seasons. We just got The Rookie picked up for its 7th season, so it's still happening.
Yeah. Melissa, Jennifer, anything that these both have said that makes you think that you agree with, disagree with? Do you think optimistic, pessimistic, we're all screwed?
I'm incredibly optimistic. Look, I think, as Jocelyn said, we have to figure out ways to be flexible, nimble, zig when other people are zagging. And look, the industry's changed not only in the last couple of years, but the last 5 years. But what hasn't changed is there's always going to be a need for great stories, great content, and shows. And the other thing that I'll say is why, what we saw a year ago, 2 years ago, I personally am excited about the ways in which we're collaborating now. We were all either behind closed doors, on Zoom. We're getting back in rooms. We're seeing writers' rooms, people in person, meetings in person, and I think that's breeding a whole different kind of collaboration that, again, I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think further to that, I think everyone, given the cost-effective challenges of producing the content. I mean, Tom's going to the UK, Jocelyn's going to New Zealand. I think everybody in the ecosystem kind of was so separated by either technology or business practices or whatever. And I think now everyone in the entire industry is collaborating in ways. I've seen studios and networks work together, studios and studios work together. I mean, I think you just have to be flexible and creative in how you build it, and I feel like everyone's taking advantage, business-wise and creative-wise, of those opportunities, second windows for a lot of the streamers. I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity. And for the creators and the talent, I feel like technology leveled the playing field, and you know, a lot of these shows, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was a spec pilot that these actors shot. Insecure was web series that someone had seen and made it into a very successful show. So I would encourage everyone there to just create, whether it's writing the spec script, you know, there's always great stories, or going to shoot a lot of these, you know, indie pilots, or making those relationships. I feel like it's getting it in the hands of the right people and absolutely doing a lot of work. I mean, some of these shows take 5, 6, 7, 10 years, but I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to pivot within this kind of changing landscape, and it's really kind of broken down the doors for a lot of people.
Do you think it's changed the way in which people get their stories into those hands? As I said, you were an agent for many years. You will have seen many clients, writers coming through. Has that changed in the last 5, 10 years, or is it really just a case of if it's good, it'll be found?
Well, a lot of these, I think it's changed, because when I was starting out, a lot of it was a writer would go staff on a show, work there for 10 years. I mean, now these shows don't last 10 years, but work there for 10 years, and then get their opportunity to make a deal with the studio, and then get to develop a show. And honestly, I feel like that's changed a lot. Even when I was doing it, it's people from New Zealand, the UK, Israel, formats, you know, everyone, you know, webtoon, TikTok creators. I think a lot of people, I think what hasn't changed is, you know, these shows and films are extremely risk and expensive, and they want people who know how to execute. And I know what I'm absolutely getting success-wise and creative-wise from a Shonda show or whoever. So I feel like it's really making those partnerships of people who can execute the vision with the creative, so people feel comfortable taking lots of risk.
Yeah, taking risks is hard in these times, but you really need to do it, right? Do you think people? Do you think they will? I mean, one of the challenges is there's so many layoffs, right? You see that across the board. You know, we could spend an hour talking about Paramount being sold. You know, one of the most historic Hollywood studios. But you see a lot of these buyers, and I fear that they're not really wanting to take risks because they want to keep their own jobs. Do you think that, and open this up to everyone? Do you think fear might play a part in the next few years, people playing it safe, or do you think they'll go the other way and say, you know what, this is the time we need to do some weird stuff?
I think they're going to stay conservative for a bit. I mean, I don't think we can underestimate how hard it is to get someone's attention, and the someone being the audience. And I think that's where we have to give empathy a bit to the studios and to distribution and to marketing. So that's the part of the lean into known IP. That's, you know, also, you know, look, the executives now all grew up on a certain type of filmmaking, a certain type of storytelling, and so that's what they love, and that's also then what they're making, and so that's also stopping innovation, which is disappointing. But then the innovation is found outside of the system. It's in, you know, Vivzy Pop, who did Has Been Hotel, and then Amazon got it. It is in La Russell, who's now on Kickstarter. It's in Mr. Beast, who's now at Amazon. So I think that they're finding ways to push innovation, but also finding ways to keep their doors open, because it does us no good to be wildly innovative if those doors are closed that are the ways to which to have the 3,000 plus screen release in terms of film, or to reach a wider audience in terms of television.
You used to work at Lucasfilm, so you know IP.
Tiny independent company, yes.
Yes, a very small business. So you've seen that side of it, and now you have your own independent company. How do you get their attention with some of the things that you're talking about?
Well, I consider my long career, I've been lucky. So I've been on all sides of the table. So I have been an executive. I came with production, so I was a AD for a long time. And so I also, the comic that was bought, I was part creator of that, and then as a producer. So I've seen kind of each side, and I want to be able to understand, the emotion that's involved with it and the stakes. And so when I'm looking at selling, whether I am trying to get someone to listen to the podcast we produce, or whether I'm trying to talk to a publisher about the video game, or whether it is trying to get through the 70th executive that's come on to the show, it's still about, I'm thinking about all angles. So I'm not only am I there to protect the creator and that POV, but to also have that person or whoever the intended audience is to understand that there is also the universal themes, because that's what we gravitate to. I think about this show Unorthodox that I always bring up, because I'm not a 4-foot-tall Orthodox Jew who lives in New York, but yet I understand the idea of like trying to find your place in the world, trying to find love, trying to find your voice in a world that's telling you you don't have a voice. So I am there to make sure that the executives, the marketing department, my social media manager, everyone understands we have to push these universal themes out, but also understand why we're standing out in the market.
Mm-hmm. One of the big things last year was the actors and writers' strikes. Where do you think we are now? Tom, as an actor, not a writer, you made that clear. Where do you think we are? You know, they both got quite a lot out of those new contracts, but then that was also coincided with this contraction. What's the sort of mood in the camp?
I think it's really hard, particularly for the actors, just from what I've seen out there, the people that I know, and while there were gains in that, I think the sheer volume we've seen in the time that I haven't relied purely on my acting, I've really seen the chasm of the top and the lower end of this. The middle class working, of which I was part of, is basically non-existent now. So it didn't matter if you work your way up, you earn a certain quote where you get a certain amount of money. It's basically a take it or leave it with they're going to pay number one and number two, and then the bottom. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people really struggling to make their health insurance. I mean, I think it's pretty clear the numbers of 150,000 roughly, and I think there's about 6% who can make their health insurance. So that kind of indicative of how hard it is for actors to earn enough, and the volume of jobs. If there's less projects, there's just going to be less opportunity for there. So it is. There's a lot of people who are feeling that pinch. But again, I think if as we talked about, there's always stories to be told, and I think there is a conservative nature to the projects that studios and networks are making, but there will be those things that push through and create opportunity for an Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If the product is something that speaks to people, hoping that sort of takes root and projects do open up again.
Does anyone here think the middle class of acting will return? I mean, we see the networks cut the number of series regulars. We see the number of actors in general on a show reduced. Does anyone think that what Tom's saying will come back? Is it cyclical?
I don't think the middle class actor is coming back.
No,
unfortunately.
Does anyone disagree? Anyone agree? No.
It pains me to say that too.
And that has a knock-on effect, right? That has a knock-on effect for below the line as well. These costs, it's just harder to make a show these days. And I say that whether you're from Shondaland or an independent creator, it's tougher to justify. Is that all it is? Is it cyclical? What I'm trying to get at is it's a tough moment right now. We're coming out the back of COVID. We're coming out the back of 2 strikes. Are we just in this rut and we'll get out of it, or is this sort of how it's going to be? Melissa, I'm going to pick on you.
I think it's cyclical. I think they're just different ruts that people come out of and the industry comes out of. I think the biggest thing is just it's going to pivot and change. Streaming obviously completely changed our industry, and it's how do we adapt that, because everyone's trying to figure out creatively and business-wise how to adapt to that, because the technology took off so fast, but then everything got caught up. And if there are less shows and less production or more outsourced or whatever it is, I think it just changes the general nature of the industry, because production changed, casting changed, the creators changed, like a lot of it has changed. I don't think you come out of it the same way each time, whether it is a strike or a moment in the industry, but I think it's kind of ever evolving, so no one has all the answers right now of what it's going to look like, especially with a lot of mergers and companies shifting and their business practices and what they're looking to do.
Are there opportunities? Diana, you sort of alluding to this idea that in these tough times you can find opportunities. Is that to do something a bit different, to do something that stands out? Is that Is that possible, or are we just going to keep the same system? It's just going to be harder to get in.
I truly believe that in chaos there's opportunity, but you can only take advantage of opportunity if you're willing to break your own eggs. I'm mixing all kinds of metaphors right now. I'm gonna next build a brick house. I don't know. So the tools are all there in which to try to stand out, and creativity is never going to be anyone's problem. I think that's the main takeaway from whatever's happening in the industry. I think it's feeling so loud right now because of the way that we have this media cycle. But we've been through this before. I mean, we had it in 99 to 2000 when we had the tech crisis. Same thing 2007 to 2006 to 2008 with the housing crisis and the world meltdown. It's just that right now, so many structures in society are wibbly wobbly. Healthcare, like I'm trying to.
Wibbly wobbly is a really nice way to say we're all screwed.
Our lives are wibbly wobbly. So I think that there are ways, but I think what is hard is that the number of times I've sat in meetings at various studios and they all keep saying like, you know, I can't wait till we go back. And I'm like, go back to what? Go back to the time when women weren't hired, when blacks couldn't get, like what time? Go back where? Like we have moved on. We need to acknowledge we have moved on. It doesn't mean blow up the system. I think that's the other thing that goes on. We have to take what is relevant from before and bring that part forward, but then look at the tools that are there now. The fact that we have changing demographics that have not been acknowledged by any of the studios at all. The fact that we have changing consumer behavior, how they want to watch things, like all of those things need to be taken into account. And I do think that the more willing we're able to kind of take a breath and just think, well, what is it that I excel at? What else can I learn? And where can I just honestly just keep it on and poppin'? I mean, that's what we have to do. There's no other choice for us. We just have to go get a job somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's well said. You mentioned there women and minorities. It feels like one of the challenges is as the companies get more conservative, this recent drive towards representation and diversity is one of the things that might fall away. Jennifer, we were talking about what you do. Are you worried? There has been more native and indigenous projects over the last few years.
If we could have all of our lovely creators.
Okay, they say the computers aren't taking over the world, and I'm not sure. My next question was going to be about AI, so that's a bit weird.
Over here.
Okay. Is there a concern that we'll go backwards in terms of representation as we get more conservative?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're already seeing that happening in real life and in real time. And so I think, you know, with Peak TV, a lot of doors were opened. And I think that a lot of projects got through. A lot of writers got jobs that would not have been given a chance before just because there was so much to do. And I think that was really great. And given during that time, a lot of things were proven, you know, that for a lot of people who were being told, no, there isn't an audience for that, or, you know, no, we can't sell that, or that won't work, that there was a lot of proving being done that absolutely that does sell. There is an audience for that. And I think that we've actually moved so far beyond that, though, and I feel like there's a huge disconnect, right, between what we're seeing at the studio level and what the audience are really not only wanting, but expecting now. And so I think that there's going to have to be a moment. I think we're all at least, you know, in native film, we're all really watching to see what is this moment going to look like. You know, who's going to win out, because there is a retraction, I think, happening. But I think that audiences are demanding that they're accurately represented in the media that is in pop culture. And so I think there will be demands for that kind of content. And so I'm really interested. I think, you know, for all of the trouble that's going on within the industry and this great reckoning, you know, I think there's the opportunity for a lot of underdog stories. And so I'm really excited to see some of the partnerships that can come out and that these underdog stories can come up and win. And I think, you know, just for example, at Cherokee Film, you know, speaking of what I know of, we are a tribe, we are a sovereign government. We have businesses and we have a film studio. What can we do? You know, what can we do to change the industry? Well, we can start developing our own television and our own films. What can we bring to the table? And so I think, you know, we're one of those underdog stories, and I'm really excited to see what other underdog stories there are out there. But I do think that we're already seeing, and it's really unfortunate, but we're already seeing where doors were opened, they're starting to close. But I think that we will depend on audiences everywhere to demand that that representation continues in whatever form. You know, whatever happens in this with the state of the industry, I think those demands hopefully will win out.
Does anyone else agree that this is the time for underdog stories, or is it the opposite?
I think there's always a time for underdogs. So I don't think that ever goes. I mean, you know, you think about most of the films in the 70s, they were all underdog stories. But no, I think that's something that continues on, and there'll always be a voice for that because creators come out of that. There's a point of view that comes from somebody who lives that underdog story that reaches the broader audiences. So I think that's always there.
Jocelyn, you were going to say something there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there always is a time for that. I think there's always something to that story that everybody sees a piece of themselves in. And maybe it's not their whole life, but a moment in their life. And I do think they're really relatable. And, you know, I think as much as certainly like IP and known quantities are vital right now in this moment where people are being more conservative, I still think that a good idea wins. And I mean, we've even seen it in the projects that we're selling. It's, you know, we're still selling really original ideas. And when someone has one, people know it. And I think we can all, you know, hopefully that's, you know, I think that's part of why I'm optimistic about the future. And I think those ideas can come from anywhere, you know, and it's I guess, part of our job too as executives to make sure that doesn't go away.
Hollywood is incredibly white and male on the whole. Is there a naivety though? Lionsgate makes the Power Universe shows, and there are too many of those to count. I think we could spend a whole hour just listing them off, I think. But they prove that there's an audience. They are hugely successful. Why aren't there more?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess that's something maybe to ask some of the buyers out there. But, you know, it's been an incredibly successful show and, you know, universe for us and continues to be. And I think, I mean, literally we were talking about it yesterday. And I think that, you know, for us, it certainly resonates. And it's part of why I think, at least at our stage as the studio, we aren't afraid to take chances on those voices that are telling maybe minority stories or just different stories that we aren't used to seeing, and, you know, hopeful that if you tell it in the right way, if there's something, usually there still is something very relatable to most people within those, while still speaking to a specific audience or from a specific voice. And I guess I still feel like those are going to cut through. I don't exactly know why there aren't more, but I think that is a very good case of there should be more.
Yeah. Jen, Melissa, I ask you the same question in terms of, do you think what Jocelyn's saying is right, in the sense there should be more, but there just isn't, and have any clue why?
I mean, I'm going to disagree a little bit because again, go back to your earlier question about the layoffs. I do find that it's not a one-size-fits-all, that there are executives out there that are willing to take risks and, frankly, fall on their sword for those stories that feel different, that feel a little bit more subversive. I mean, at UCP, you know, that's exactly what we're doing. We are taking risks. We are telling stories that are left of center and that are daring. And, you know, while certainly we've had challenges in the market, I think we've been really successful with that in our brand. So, look, I think that we're finding the challenges of budgets, and obviously the budgets at all of these platforms are being cut. So certainly, yes, we're seeing that they're buying less. But I haven't found, if anyone has said, well, I need a story that feels more familiar. I think that it may be a familiar theme. It may be a story that, again, audiences want to connect. They want to connect emotionally, but these buyers and the audiences want to be surprised. And again, it's about surprising them. It's about making them feel something. So, yeah, I think that we always say, you know, how can we sort of cut through the clutter? How can we find stories that are, again, unique, distinct, and different? You know, and I think those, they won't always find a sale, but most of the time they will.
I'm going to open it up to audience questions. So if anyone has any, get thinking. I'm going to do one sort of quick fire round here. In a sentence or two, I wondered if each of you could sort of say, what do you think the biggest challenge, what's the one thing that you would like to solve in Hollywood? Is it about representation? Is it about technology? Diane, I'll start with you. What's the one thing that you would like to change or solve in Hollywood?
Sorry, my brain just fried. Mindset. The Hollywood system was built and still uses a lot of the same thinking, accounting codes, everything from the 1920s. And so even when someone comes in and wants to try something, like I wish the studios would work more across divisions. I find that quite frustrating, especially for myself, since my company works across media, to not have those possibilities. And I think what's going to happen is that was fine, because when we're looking at creators, the way they've come up, creators are told, and I specifically say creators, excuse me, instead of saying writers, because I'm working with so many different types. So you're given two doorways. Do you go in the film door or the TV door? And that's it. So we're asking creatives to pick their talent ahead of time. And I think that is a shame. But I understand it. So I'm not saying this in a shady way nor blaming anyone. It's just that's how the system is set up. I wish there was a way that when someone has an incredible story world, to be able to go in and say, like, how can we make this work? Now, even if the executives on the creative side are like, yeah, let's do this, then we've got business affairs. And they're like, we don't know how to make the deal because everyone has their own P&L. And so again, this is no one's fault. This is just the way the system is set up. So I wish that we could think about what's next, what's coming next, these new types of creators.
Update the mindset. 1920s is old, apparently.
It's old.
Yeah,
It's old.
I get it.
It's tiny.
Jen?
Yeah, I mean, just very quick, I think you touched on it. I would say, yeah, it's hard, and I love my corporation, I love my company, but the bureaucracy and the levels of decision making, especially, again, I'm going to go back to my producer roots. You know, you just want to get shows made, get it done, and sometimes the time it takes for decisions to be made, green lights to happen, can be frustrating. So I would love to see, my wish list would be, how could that happen faster?
Yeah, good. Lissa, what would you want to solve?
World peace. But beside that, I think we all have the same challenges as the mindset, but I think, things have been changing. When I started, oh my God, an actor can't direct a multi-million-dollar blockbuster movie, and now a lot of actors are, people get put in boxes. Comedy people can't do drama and vice versa. So I think the biggest issue is that mindset of, and sometimes it's not specific people, it's just like a company, like, we can't do this deal or this. I hate when, I worked for a very corporate company and then I work for a kind of a startup, and working in it, it's like these companies are saying, and we all have to change and pivot in this new marketplace of whatever it's going to be. But we always say, oh, well, that's how we always did it, or this is our, rules, or this is the only way we make deals. I mean, before the British system, really infiltrated, no one ever thought to do 6 episodes, or we can't do this, we can't do that, because this is how we've done it. So I think kind of throwing that to the wind, I know there are certain regulations and stuff. I got a show ordered, but the studio wouldn't accept it because they wanted to do less episodes, and they said, no, we only need 10 or more to amortize the cost when we sell it globally. I think everything's kind of open for debate right now, and having to be flexible in how to change things.
Been the rules. Jocelyn?
Yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much agree with what everyone is saying. And then I guess I'll just add, I think in like sort of the day-to-day, because some of the things it's hard to, like, how do I cut through the bureaucracy, or how can I personally change people's mindset? So I guess I just try to really think of how can I help open doors for the next generation, for others who don't quite know how to open the door themselves. I know that was me, and people were really generous. And so I think just like day to day, that's what I kind of keep in mind and try my best to do, and share my knowledge with them, and hope that that does make a difference.
Jennifer?
So I could obviously sit up here and say that representation is my, is how what I would want to change. I could talk about representation all day long, but I'm quite frankly tired of talking about it. We just want it to happen. So I think, I didn't come up in the film industry. I was an investigative journalist who got into documentary filmmaking, who started learning on behalf of my tribe, the film industry. And so I come at everything from an investigative journalist lens. When I started learning how movies and television are made, I had so many moments where I was like, what? And so I would say, just to keep this short and sweet, is I would love to see writer empowerment, screenwriters having more power over the projects that are being made, because I feel like it's, when I learned how projects are made and how writers, the role that writers play in the projects that we see on TV, and the small role that they play, I just thought, I wish there was a way to change that, because I feel like the shows wouldn't be there if it weren't for them. So,
Tom?
Well, I feel very lucky to work with a company, and if I recommend teaming up with Shonda Rhimes, because representation is fortunately not an issue for us, but I realize it is. I am aware it is prevalent out there. But just from my personal journey, this company providing opportunity, we get to do different things. Directors, actors get to direct, writers get to direct, people get to cross into producing. So my position, what I really revel in this particular job in this company, is opening those doors. And numerous times I've been given, I remember one of my first, I wanted to hire a director for a network show that the network didn't know and they didn't approve. And I told Sean I really believe in this independent director and really wanted to give her a shot. And she said, consider it done. And the power that she has, which is not oftentimes the case, allowed me to hire this director, and that was Ava DuVernay for Scandal.
That's a pretty good.
I know it was. I'm not. Trust me, I'm not taking credit for Ava, but she couldn't. She had done Middle of Nowhere, which is a film that I absolutely loved, and I wanted to hire her, and they were like, she's never done network television. So it's really having, again, it's a tremendous fortune to have Shonda Rhimes saying, you can hire, if you want to put her in there, put her in there. So that's kind of the work that I'm continuing to do, is finding those new voices and taking chances, taking risks, which is what you have to do, and that really is the only way for people to get opportunity.
Yeah, I love the idea of someone saying no to Ava DuVernay. That person is the guy who didn't sign the Beatles. Right, we've got a question down here with the hat on.
Question. My name is Patrick Hampton. I'm American Canadian. The question right now is that the screenwriters, I can't even think right now, sorry. There was just an approved strike in Canada for screenwriters. This happened there. Do you think that's going to be affecting you guys at all? And the second part too is, are you using AI at all in your daily? Or if not, are you thinking about adapting it because of the AI reality that's in front of us?
Anyone work in Canada? No? No one Canada, by the sounds of it.
I have a couple projects with Canadian writers. I think truly it's a global business, and all these things all affect each other in whatever capacity it is. So, like, we want writers to get their due and be part of it. I just feel like it all affects everything now, every part of the industry across borders. So yes. And do you want to talk about AI?
I was going to say, I'm not sure how much time we have to talk artificial intelligence. Anyone got a quick soundbite? Anyone using AI?
I'll just, the quick thing is, like, AI is still a story that's being written by something or someone. So it's hard to jump into it right now. It's just, the main thing being is copyright. There's a lot of things, we're not going to get into it, but like the main thing in terms of chain of title is copyright. And until that gets figured out, anyone that messes around with AI, studios can't buy your things because you can't get chain of title, which means it can't be made. The unions won't touch it. So I'm just going to go just to the output of it. It's also no good for output and copyright. Those are the two things I'll talk about.
Okay, good. Any other questions that I want to hear in the front?
Yeah, so I'm personally most interested in non-scripted, but kind of documentary, but whatever you feel like answering. I'm curious, there's always like tried and true principles of what works as far as content, and then there's trends. Like what would you say as far as both of those categories, like trends that are happening now of what buyers are interested in, and then trends or things that they're always interested in?
Money. I don't think, I mean, that's what I love our business. Like these shows, you don't know sometimes. You know that whole saying, nobody knows anything. I mean, these shows, some things are flukes, become the biggest hits in the world that no one believed in, or one person believed in, or it took 10 years to get things made. I mean, the trends seem to be going back towards more traditional programming that you alluded to, big network sitcoms, procedurals that sell well over the world and repeat for audiences. But I still feel like there's going to be, like Jocelyn was saying, like a lot of opportunity and creative stories to be told, because good stories no matter what form, if it's documentary, reality show, movie, whatever it takes.
And I would say ongoing. I mean, I think we hear that a lot. Look, we will still make limiteds. I think the studios still will, but I think, obviously from a financial perspective, the ongoing is obviously more profitable. But again, I think the trends will come and go. 6 months ago, we thought we had heard YA, not something people want. Right this week, everybody wants YA.
There was something Melissa just said there that I'm not sure everyone heard. Nobody knows anything. And I think that sort of pretty much sums it up, right?
Except this panel.
Yeah. Down here on the front.
Joseph Castillo, Media Despoisida. We're hearing this kind of thing of the retraction, how we're going back to the kind of tried and true procedurals, and primarily an actor who is kind of like was the middle class and has had to start doing other things and producing and writing and all this other stuff. But hearing that, it does make it kind of interesting. Those procedurals, they produce revenue, and that is kind of what the middle class of actors were built on. Those that 80s, 90s heyday of these kind of machines that just cranked it out. So I'm curious, we have this, well, maybe it is contracting a little bit, but those things are expansionary machines. They are those, back in the day when you get 22 episodes or, even over 10, those are the machines that did that. So do you think, have you looked at that side of maybe the coin of like, well, actually that might actually stimulate growth? That's my question.
Oh boy. Does anyone want to take
Nobody
that?
knows anything. Yeah, I mean, look, you're right, but it's the models keep changing. So sure, that's a possibility. But if if they're making less if they're doing 22 episodes and nobody's making that anymore, unless it's something that's established and already running, it's going to be tougher. Then you pay more. If we're talking from an acting standpoint, are you paying actors more over a deal over a period of time? It can get creative in how those funds are paid and how money is made in that. And sure, that opportunity exists, but and I don't want to be doom and gloom on that front, but it seems very difficult now with all those shifts that are happening that model or that existence has a viability right now. So I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But it's very challenging because of what people are making more are limited series or structured things that happen, and it could take over, and 22 episodes would take over 8 months, 9 months of shooting. Now things take 2 years. So are you going to spread, $20,000 over that period of time, whatever it is? It's much tougher for writers and actors who are experiencing that lack of quantity in justifying paying that money doing that. So it's going to get creative in certain other ways to try to do it, but nobody knows anything.
I think on that note, nobody knows anything, but we do know the time is up. We could sit here for hours and talk about the state of the industry. I hope you'll give a round of applause to our fans. We have Thank you very much, guys.